Welcome to the Biohackers live show. My name is Teemu Arina. Today's guest was supposed to be Hannu Kinnunen from Oura, but we actually rescheduled that for Monday. And instead of that, we're going to be having a deep dive into the ketogenic diet and how to become not bulletproof, but anti-fragile with Siim Land. And so if you want to join in, you can use the hashtag BiohackersLive on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, wherever you are. And also on our Facebook page, there is the live stream. So you can jump in on the Biohacker Summit channel and ask any questions you like. So the Facebook will be the channel tonight for discussions and any questions that you have. The show notes will be available afterwards at biohack.to/Siim. When we are streaming this live, it's not going to be available yet, but it's going to be after this show. So with that, who's our guest today? Siim Land. If you've been following the Biohackers live shows, you know that he's the man who has been making these short, hilarious Biohackers report videos on different topics. And today we will actually go deeper into his topic of specialty, that his YouTube channel is full of excellent, great videos. So it will be all about ketogenic diet and how to have boundless energy and how to really look at food from a completely new perspective. So he's exciting to talk about all the time. I was speaking with him in Riga in Latvia in the first Biohacker conference that they organized, and his presentation on this topic was super fascinating. Siim Land is also going to be at the Biohacker Summit next week in Stockholm. So with that, let's bring our guest. Hey, Olli.
Hello, what's up?
Yeah, so Olli, the medical doctor behind the Biohacker's Handbook, is also joining the show. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing terrific. I've been the whole week in my summer clinics, and I've been getting a lot of sun and a lot of cold exposure and swimming in the lake, and couldn't be better. So I'm totally rejuvenated from perhaps an immense stress while putting together the web course.
Yeah. You've been working on a course on basically how to optimize everything that comes to all the micronutrients that you get into your body. And this course is in Finnish, unfortunately. So if you're in Finland, you can find that from our websites. Ravitsemustila kuntoon is the name, basically how to fix your nutritional status. Yeah. And but we're definitely going to work on an English version of that one later this year.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's going to be alongside with the Biohacker's Handbook. It's going to also be printed out in English. So tune in for that.
Yeah. Okay, let's tune in to Siim. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing amazing as well. Also going through this kind of a period of more exposure to sunlight and de-stressing after some time of hustling hard and preparing myself for optimal performance in the coming few weeks as well.
Yeah, I've been through a lot of things in the last couple of weeks. The joke that goes around in the Biohacker Summit circles, the people who work on it, is basically the unhealthiest thing that you can do is actually to organize a health conference. So I haven't got that much sleep. Well, I have to say that I've got like borderline 7 hours, so usually like 6.5 or something like this, but not like the full 8 that I would love to get. And definitely my sleep timing has been late also, so crunching as long as I can and then just, pass out. And that's what it's all about. So I'm really looking forward to the excellent program that we have coming up. There is 27 speakers coming to the Biohacker Summit, and Siim Land is one of them. Hannu Kinnunen is one of them. Elsa Sotiriadis is one of them. Yeah, we have also Greg Potter, we had a really excellent discussion recently on sleep and how to optimize that. He's going to be there as well. And and I mean, all of us are going to be there anyway. Anyone who is into biohacking should be there, because the Bulletproof Conference is not going to be organized this year. And that's a really good excuse to come over to Europe and check out the conference of the year if you're into biohacking. Come on.
Check out some real biohacking or
exactly. Yeah. Check out some real biohacking. We have some real fundamental stuff going on there. We have really awesome side events also, the upgrade offsite, upgrade dinner, and the foraging trip to learn everything about medicinal plants and how to use them and how to ferment your own foods. And it's going to be excellent. So Siim, talking about food, talking about diets, what got you interested in all of this? I mean, you've been specializing on the ketogenic diet recently, but I mean, what got you into biohacking?
Well, essentially, like, I feel like I've always been kind of curious about human nature, what it means to be human. And also I've been wanting to improve myself always, ever since I remember, to try to become better, smarter, stronger, faster, all those good things. And then during my teenager years, I got into weightlifting, started training. And from on there, you kind of try to optimize not only your physical performance, but you look at, your nutrition, your sleep, there's all kinds of things, because they're also, they're vital for your overall strength development and things like that. So if you neglect, good nutrition, or if you don't sleep enough, then you're going to waste, you're wasting the opportunity to, build muscle or burn fat, whatever it may be. So it's always like an integrated, holistic approach. And what got me interested in biohacking in particular was probably like, I started listening to Bulletproof Radio. I started listening to Ben Greenfield, and it kind of went into this deep rabbit hole of researching different topics. Especially at first, it was like paleo, and and then I kind of stumbled upon the keto diet, tried it out. At first, I was simply doing it as an experiment, because I was still kind of, you think like, oh no, I'm going to lose all my muscle if I don't eat carbs, and I'm going to lose my strength and stuff like that. But then I kind of wanted to know, there's so many research about the other health benefits of how it improves your cognition and overall metabolism and blood sugar levels. And I was like, okay, it's going to be a short-term thing. I'm going to simply try it out and see what happens. But it turned out, like after a few months or so, I was feeling phenomenal, and I haven't wanted to go back ever since. So that's what I've been doing.
Wow. That might be the secret behind the fact that you are cranking out a lot of content on your YouTube channel. It's amazing stuff that you have over there. So actually, I'm suggesting that we take a look at one of your videos on keto stuff, if you don't mind.
Are you battling with weight loss? Can't keep those love handles at bay? Or can't you lose those extra few inches? There are reasons why you can't just melt off body fat, but maybe you can. In this video, I'm going to explain you how you can melt off body fat like butter, with butter. Okay, let's start off by looking at how your body melts off its own fat. Our adipose tissue stores fat in the form of triglycerides. To melt fat off your body, you have to first quote-unquote release it. This happens by a process called lipolysis, which breaks down those triglycerides into glycerol and free fatty acids, or FFAs. Lipolysis gets triggered by hormones like glucagon, epinephrine, norepinephrine, ghrelin, growth hormone, testosterone, and cortisol. Glucagon is the counterpart of insulin that rises when our blood sugar levels are low. It makes the liver convert stored glycogen into glucose and increase free fatty acid utilization. The key hormone when it comes to body composition is insulin, which regulates the storage and distribution of nutrients. If it's constantly elevated, then we won't be able to burn fat and will actually be more prone to depositing it. Insulin gets released in response to rising blood sugar levels so that it could bring it down to normal. This happens by consuming high amounts of carbohydrates, very little by lean protein, and not at all by fat. High carb diets make lipase, the enzyme involved in breaking down body fat, almost completely inactive. By triggering insulin, you put a halt to burning fat for the rest of the day and possibly even the next one to come. Therefore, the secret to melting of body fat is to keep insulin levels low and restrict carbohydrate intake. And the ability to melt off body fat and use it for fuel isn't useful only for battling obesity or some illnesses. It's not about just weight loss, but it's a very useful nutritional trick. The difference between burning sugar and burning fat is that you'll be using your own adipose tissue and you'll gain more energy from it. When your liver glycogen stores get depleted, you increase glucagon and lipolysis by starting to produce more ketone bodies. After a while, you enter a state of nutritional ketosis in which you're using your own body fat for fuel instead of glucose. This can happen after fasting for 2 to 3 days or by following a low carbohydrate ketogenic diet. When you're in ketosis, you'll be literally taking your own body fat and converting it into energy. To lose weight, you would still have to be in a negative energy balance. But this is so easy to do on a ketogenic diet. Eating fat triggers a hormone called CKK, which tells your body that you're full. It gives the brain immense amounts of long-lasting energy and keeps it satiated. The foods eaten on a ketogenic diet are based on primarily fat, moderate protein, and virtually zero net carbohydrates. This will prime your metabolic machinery to preferring fat and ketones for fuel. But isn't fat unhealthy? Definitely not. Saturated fat and cholesterol have been villainized for decades, but all in vain. They're essential nutrients for healthy cell membrane, cognitive performance, and hormone production. Cholesterol is produced by your body every single day, and it's mostly comprised in the brain. When you're in ketosis, your biochemistry will be completely altered. You'll be using that saturated fat for fuel instead of clogging your arteries with it. Fat is unhealthy and dangerous only when eaten with high amounts of carbohydrates and sugar. And of course, vegetable oils and trans fats are more inflammatory than butter or coconut oil. As you can remember, the hormones that trigger lipolysis are all dependent of the consumption of fat. The best testosterone boosting foods are high in cholesterol and fat, such as eggs, red meat, fish, and butter. Another satiety hormone is ghrelin, which won't get released in the presence of CKK. In 1 gram of fat there are 9 calories, whereas 1 gram of carbohydrates or protein has only 4, less than half the amount. So of course it's easy to presume that eating more fat makes you fat. But it's also easy to make false presumptions based on that. High carb, low fat diets with no fiber can lead to leptin resistance. You can eat copious amounts of sugar without even feeling like you've eaten something. The signal that you've received enough calories disappears into the void and gets silenced by your subconscious mind, whose motivations urge you to keep on eating because your brain is starving. Now, eat a tablespoon of salted butter or coconut oil and you won't get any cravings whatsoever. You'll light up your taste buds and feel amazing, but you won't enter this vicious cycle of wanting to get more and more. Fat feeds your brain and keeps it nourished. The foods eaten on a ketogenic diet will keep you satiated and extremely satisfied. Protein, fibrous leafy green vegetables, and healthy fats will give you more energy and keep you full. But for me, the ketogenic diet isn't about losing weight or staying ripped or anything like that. It puts you into a fat burning mode by default. Ketones are premium quality jet fuel that give you more energy than sugar does. They also have great performance enhancing benefits for both your muscles and cognition. If you want to melt off fat fast and easily, then keto is the way to go, but it shouldn't be your main reasons for trying it out. The ketogenic diet shouldn't be a quick fix. It should be done as a long-term thing because you'll reap all the benefits of proper keto adaptation after several months. If you want to learn more about the ketogenic diet and how to start it the easy way, then check out my book called Simple Keto. But if you're already doing the ketogenic diet and want to take it to the next level, then get my Keto IF program that combines the ketogenic diet with intermittent fasting. Thanks for watching. Make sure you click the like, subscribe, notification bell as well. My name is Siim. Stay burning fat. Stay empowered.
Awesome. Stay burning fat, stay empowered. So, I mean, isn't it a bit paradoxical that you can basically eat as much fat as you like to burn the fat, burn the love handles around you? So like, why now? Like, why not like 10, 20 years ago when they were all about low fat, that fat is going to kill you? Why right now there is all this discussion about high fat suddenly?
I think part of it has to do with, these biased research that was done a few decades ago, especially like people like Ansel Keys, who deliberately misconstrued their studies or misinterpreted their studies where they correlated high fat consumption with heart disease, but those studies were taken completely out of context, and you could have easily drawn the similar findings by correlating the data with increased shoe size or something like that. So yeah, like basically the reason why people think the fat is bad is that it's so taken out of context. Of course, if you consume like these highly processed fats like trans fats and omega-3 or omega-6 oils, then they may become inflammatory, and that's where the problem lies. But if you consume fat in a state of, let's say, low blood sugar and low glycogen as well, then it's going to have like a completely different effect on your body, and it's a more natural state for our body to be in a less inflamed state, and to not be kind of have to experience lower levels of insulin also. So it's also like a matter of context.
Yeah, what do you think, Olli, on this? I mean, you've been digging into some of the biochemistry of it.
Yeah, the problem is that when you speak about certain like macronutrients, so is carbohydrates good or bad, or is fat good or bad, and etc. They miss the whole point of the physiology and the biochemistry, what's happening inside the body. So of course, if you have high insulin and you eat high amounts of carbs and then you add high amounts of fats, you're gonna get fat and it's gonna cause inflammation. But the situation changes dramatically when you cut down or like severely lower your carbohydrate and sugar intake, and then your body is gonna turn more into burning fat and more into producing ketone bodies and more efficient on that biochemistry or that biochemical pathways. So we all have these energetic pathways inside us. It just depends on what we feed to us. So the problem here is having high amounts of bad quality fat and at the same time high spiking insulinogenic foods. That's really going to cause the problem. So we have to look this not just fat versus carbs, but the quality of fat and the frame, the time of the day, and how you manage. When do you eat fat? When do you eat carbs? So there are a lot of nuances where we can delve into this conversation if you want.
Absolutely. So one of the key ideas here is that it might be healthier from the standpoint that you are not spiking your blood sugar on a constant basis that can then lead into insulin resistance. So with fats, you will have a much kind of stable source of energy, and it looks like more like having a huge log on a fireplace instead of just like throwing gasoline into the fire, what sugar seems to be. So what do you think, Siim?
It's also like what kind of a signal are you sending into your body, and what kind of receptors you're activating. If insulin is one of the key hormones in choosing what kind of nutrition or what kind of fuel you're going to burn, then it's also important to use it only in certain circumstances and to make sure that you're gonna use it to your advantage, because insulin is very powerful. It's an anabolic hormone, and whenever insulin is elevated, then you're more prone to storing. It's a storage hormone, and it's used. It can be used, to shuttle nutrients into cells. But the problem is that if those cells are already full, then that insulin is only going to lead to an excess, and it's going to overspill that fuel, and that's going to cause insulin resistance. Your pancreas is going to start pumping out more insulin to get the blood sugar out of your bloodstream, but because of the cells, they're already full, then it's going to actually be it's going to develop like insulin resistance, and it can lead to like diabetes and stuff like that. So it's very always a matter of context, because most of the time you're not in a state where your body needs carbohydrates or where you need insulin to shuttle nutrients into your cells. You only need insulin when your glycogen stores are very empty and you need to like replenish them.
Right. So what else can you add, Olli, on this story when it comes to these signal molecules?
Well, yeah, the cells are full, and also the receptors are not responsive. So that's always the case when you have too much of something, and the signals that are like overflowing the cells. They are not simply like responsive for that. The same thing happens with if you have too much of cortisol, so you get this glucocorticoid receptor resistance. So that's similar to insulin resistance, and most people have like those two combined. So you're both insulin and both cortisol resistant, and you're gonna have both high cortisol and high insulin, and they're gonna feed each other, and it's like this vicious cycle. So you have to also take care of your stress management if you want to control your insulin. So they're always tied together.
Cortisol raises insulin as well, right?
Yeah. So it's called GCR. It's glucocorticoid. GR. Well, something like that. Glucocorticoid receptor resistance. So I don't remember what's the exact abbreviation for that, but there's quite a bit of study on that. So it's a hugely interesting topic on this matter.
Yeah, like stress and cortisol, they can actually inhibit keto adaptation as well, because if you are in a stressed out state, you're breaking down the liver glycogen, and that glycogen is going to be released into your bloodstream, which is going to elevate insulin and stuff like that. So usually a lot of in many cases when people fail to keto adapt or get into ketosis is because they're experiencing too much stress from I don't know, maybe not sleeping enough, exercising too hard, or being stressed out in general. So that's a huge issue as well. So it's not just hormones, it's not just calories in, calories out. There's this massive hormonal milieu taking place in the background.
I'm actually digging out some charts that we can maybe take a look at here. Cool. So here I got some charts about the glycemic index and the insulin index as well. So looking at the blood sugar control here, so when your blood sugar starts to drop, your body signals that you need food. Then you eat something sugary. It spikes your blood sugar levels. Then you get a release of insulin that basically crashes your blood sugar levels. You feel hungry again. You feel tired, maybe depressed, and then you eat more. You snack more. It spikes your blood sugar. You feel amazing for a second. Then suddenly insulin kicks in, and it goes into this roller coaster. Now, many people go through a day like this if they start their mornings with a lot of carbohydrates, like orange juice and some white bread or something like this. They will go into this cycle. Now, you can switch those foods into foods that are not spiking blood sugar as heavily. Even going from like orange juice to something like pasta would actually slow down the spike of blood sugar levels, so you get slightly more stable increase and stable decrease also once insulin is released. And then when you go for more fibrous foods, you go for legumes and so on, then it's even more flat. And if we had a picture of something like a fat as a fuel, like butter or something, it would be almost flat. So here is a chart on the different foods and the way how they spike glucose levels. So there's this index, the glucose score here that basically tells you about how quickly it rises blood sugar compared to table sugar. So white bread is kind of around the same amount of spiking as taking sugar directly. But if you take something like potato chips, actually it will be lower. Now looking at the insulin score, so basically the glucose is not the whole story. So insulin release is also kind of key, and how quickly that kicks in. If you look at something like yogurt, the glucose score is quite low, it's 62, but the insulin score is super high, it's 115. So basically, these milk products often have very high insulin score. So they will help you to crash your blood sugar if you really want that by having a glass of milk or some yogurt or something like this. So
Yeah, it's crazy how to think about, the mainstream healthy quote unquote breakfast that people are said to be have to eating is like, whole grain cereal, some milk, some yogurt, maybe some bananas, fruit, and high amounts of carbs, some dairy products, and little to no fat or protein. So you're basically setting yourself up for a huge, massive sugar crash. And it's quite crazy that your body actually would thrive on a completely different state, because when you wake up in the morning, then you've been fasting all night and you're in a prime fat burning state. You're not in ketosis entirely, but you're at least your liver glycogen stores have been slightly depleted. Your blood sugar levels are also low, and you in the morning you're elevating cortisol, which is going to prime yourself to be starting to burn fat more. Cortisol is good in the morning because it's going to wake you up and it's going to rev up your metabolism, give you an energy and stuff like that. So in the morning, you're breaking down liver glycogen, you're starting to produce more ketone bodies, and the only thing that is going to inhibit that is going to eat, these whole grain cereals with milk and stuff like that. So you're basically putting a huge, massive stop on all these fat burning mechanisms that you're going through in the morning. So the best thing would be, the worst thing is to consume these whole grain cereals, and the best thing would be to kind of skip or to at least prolong your breakfast at least a few hours to take advantage of this short time window where you're so geared towards burning fat, and to take advantage of this short little boost. And it's kind of crazy that we're told to do the opposite.
How do you all personally take advantage of information like this?
Personally, I do everyday intermittent fasting. So I've noticed that ever since I began implementing this, I've been more productive. My energy levels and mood is more stable. So the morning is the best and easiest way to skip a meal if you were to skip a meal. So the main thing is for me is like stable energy regulation and stable mood. So I've noticed that if I break the fast and I eat something that's too insulinogenic, it's gonna begin the roller coaster. Even like protein, if I don't get like enough satiety and just like a slow spike of insulin, then it's gonna, I would say not ruin, but it's gonna severely like compensate the benefits of that. So
yeah. Personally, what I'm doing is I'm often starting my morning with a high protein, high fat kind of breakfast, basically an egg and some. I used to have a lot of butter coffee, but now I've switched over to butter matcha. So what I'm drinking right now is actually matcha tea, which is a highly concentrated form of green tea, and some fats. And I like to use coconut milk in this one, and maybe some goat butter. Goat butter is awesome in it as well. And
that's gonna have like a massive, prolonged energy release as well. Like green tea is already richer in L-theanine, which is gonna slow down the release of caffeine as well. And if you add some fats, then I would imagine that's gonna last like entire day almost.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when I switched over from coffee to this one, I noticed that I have much stable, also mental focus into what I'm doing. With coffee, I might be too hyper, like too kind of overstimulated sometimes, although the butter does slow down that effect. So the two tricks that I deploy nowadays is basically this matcha latte. And if I take coffee or caffeine, I'm using coffee pixels. They're one of the exhibitors at the Biohacker Summit in Stockholm. So basically, I'm microdosing on coffee. So I'm taking like two milligrams of coffee, like occasionally. And one of the founders said that they did a study in the U.S. military on coffee consumption, and the people who were sipping coffee, like just taking a little amount of coffee over a long period of time, they performed better at different tasks compared to the ones who were, drowning themselves in coffee, drinking the whole cup at once. So that's another thing about all these beverages, is kind of time it in a proper way so that it really supports biochemistry and your biology to perform at its best. So in terms of energy levels, this definitely takes the hunger away. And then when it comes to the stimulating aspect, the theanine is great as on the behind all those processes. And then when you throw in just like microdosing coffee throughout the day, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, that's my experience with it. Actually, that's how this nutrition web course is also written. I've been like extremely productive. I've been like writing 5 to 10 pages per day and skimming through like a nearly 900 references. So I've been microdosing coffee. I do this very rich butter coffee with some raw cacao and quite a bit of caprylic acid. So I drink it in a period of 8 hours. So I just pour warm water when it gets cold, and that's been hugely beneficial. If I would drink like a coffee straight away, I would get like too much of hypervigilance.
Yeah, too much caffeine can spike insulin as well, or raise cortisol to the point.
Yeah, that's my experience too, and it might actually ruin the benefits of ketosis. Of course, fasting, you're not totally fasted if you drink this kind of beverage, but you have to
semi-fasted,
and definitely in ketosis.
Another thing that I like to microdose on is chocolate. So I'm biting away like small piece of chocolate throughout the day, like very high quality raw cacao, and as dark as possible, and that's really awesome. So Siim, kind of going into your tricks, like for someone who hasn't tried like this type of diet or done even intermittent fasting or even cyclical ketosis. So cyclical ketosis is where you are cycling in and out carbohydrates. I do cyclical ketosis by having my carbohydrates in the evening, and I enjoy the benefits throughout the day, and I'm kickstarting my ketone production by using MCT oil in the morning. So what's your take on kind of timing on these things, and cyclical versus being ketosis all the time?
Yeah, definitely. That's a very good strategy in the sense that if you were ever to consume carbohydrates, then the best time would be to do it in the evening, because if you skip, like we mentioned earlier, if you skip this time window in the morning where you would spike your insulin and you would stay in this fat burning ketogenic state, then basically you're going to be burning most of the day. You're going to be burning like some ketones and fat for fuel, which is going to improve your insulin sensitivity, and it's going to deplete your liver glycogen more. And if you eat carbohydrates at night with empty glycogen stores, then most of those carbohydrates will be simply used to refill those glycogen. And if you combine it, let's say, with some heavy resistance training or exercise as well, then that's the perfect scenario, because then your muscles are literally going to be simply swallowing up that glucose, and it's not going to be used to fill the bloodstream with too much excess blood sugar, and you're going to actually be you can actually maintain ketosis with this kind of a strategy if you're not overdoing those carbs. Like I would imagine if you would eat maybe like 100 grams of carbs at dinner, then you're practically in ketosis by the next morning, as long as you combine it with like heavy resistance training and if you're very insulin sensitive.
I see. Okay, so basically I can get away with some carbohydrates if I'm exercising while I do it. It also activates the GLUT4 receptor on cells, and basically shuffles that into muscle growth instead of stores it somewhere.
Yeah, so it's basically like a backdoor in the sense that it's almost like empty calories. If your muscle glycogen are completely depleted, then they can fill up to like a few hundred grams of carbs. And if you're doing like a cyclical keto diet, for instance, like cycling between 1 week of ketosis and then having like 1 day of carbs, then practically you can consume up to like 300 to 500 grams of carbs and still stay keto like for the next day. I've experimented with these kinds of carb backloading and carb night strategies, and in the past, and I've definitely noticed that it doesn't affect your keto adaptation in the long term.
I see. What kind of ways do you use to measure and figure out if you are in ketosis?
Usually I use the blood ketones, where I want to know both my blood glucose and my blood ketones, because the urine strips, they're not that good, or they don't indicate like real ketosis, because if your urine registers high amounts of ketone bodies, then it means that your body is actually excreting them instead of using them for energy. And the problem with like blood ketones is another thing, is that even though you may have like higher levels of ketones, then it's not necessarily a good thing. It's not necessarily indicative of better metabolic health, or that you're burning more fat. After a few years of doing keto, then I've noticed that my ketones don't get that high unless I'm like fasting for several days in a row. And usually my ketones on a daily basis are somewhere like 1.2, 1.5 millimoles at the most, because I feel like if I'm very physically active as well, I'm quite keto adapted, then it's simply a matter of that my body's using those ketones for energy rather than storing them in the bloodstream. Because if during higher periods of inactivity, like sitting down or sleeping, then the ketones may actually rise more because you're not putting them into fuel, or you're not using them off. So physical exercise itself may actually lower ketones because of the release of glycogen, and it's going to balance itself out. If you have a higher levels of glucose in the bloodstream, then you're going to have like less ketones, and vice versa.
Oh, so I see. Okay. Olli, what strategies do you use to kind of track and figure out if you're in ketosis?
Yeah, Siim mentioned probably two of the most popular methods, which is the blood tracking and the urine strips. But I measure my breath acetone levels every morning and every evening. So if you do it like properly, and you do it the same time every day, every time, it's gonna really tell you about the state of ketosis. But as with the thing on blood ketones or urine ketones, if you're becoming more effective on that, you're gonna get a little lower. I actually took a photo of it, so you can show it in the screen. I will share it you on the Slack.
Okay, let's take a look at your results and then look at.
Yeah, so I can explain a little bit about this. So, but basically, I began implementing the ketogenic diet at the beginning of this year, or a few days back in 2017. So you can see that the ketone levels were pretty low at the beginning, and then let's say after around 2.5 or 3 weeks, you see the higher amounts, like around 80 acetone or bridge ketones particles, and then it gets a little lower. Then it's about to settle around how would I say, put it, like 20 to 30 like nutritional ketone range after about 3 months, so, or 2.5 months. So this is describing how becoming stage 2 keto adapted has been working out for me, and now it's been like fluctuating between morning levels of around 10 to 20 and evening levels of around 20 to 30 points or particles per the measurement. So this really gives a good picture of the ketone production, and what I noticed, the lower it gets, the more fasted I usually am. So the ketones are even more in use. But I haven't actually dropped out of ketosis at any time in this 4-month period, even though I've been eating carbohydrates like 100 grams or 150 grams every now and then, maybe once a week or so. So it's pretty. Do
you have like maybe some correlating or comparison data about like BHB levels as well? Because it would be interesting to see how do those BHB levels reflect in the acetones.
Unfortunately, I don't have. I haven't gone into blood measuring, but
because I would think like because the BHB, the beta hydroxybutyrate ketone body, that's the main one that is used by the brain and muscles after becoming keto adapted. So acetone is like the byproduct of keto metabolism almost.
Yeah,
so,
it comes through the lungs. So it's actually been shown that in a few research that acetone levels are indicative of the rate of fat loss. So I can take that study out of somewhere, but I think there will be some confounding factors in that. But yeah, that's my
it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense because the BHB would be used for energy by the brain, and acetone is actually, and that would be more, acetone would be more accurate way of showing like true state of ketosis.
Yeah, and to my reflecting my experience, I've been shedding body fat, like pure fat, off like about 5 to 6 kilos. At the same time, I've been putting on muscle around 2 kilos. So that's pretty interesting. So you can really like.
So
with butter.
So you can grow muscle and lose fat simultaneously. That was supposed to be impossible. Here is, by the way, the device, how the ketonic stick looks like. So you're breathing into it, and then you get the results in an app or a website. And you have to learn the right kind of technique, how to breathe into it, because otherwise your results might be a bit inaccurate. There is another device in the US market called Level, and Level also has this calibration, I guess some kind of calibration liquids or something that are used to calibrate the acetone measurement so that you get more accurate results. And this is available only on the US market right now. And obviously, then there is all these finger prick tests, and you can look at your blood levels. And there is some people who have done analysis on these on the internet on this accuracy of different devices, and seems like the level will be even more accurate than ketonics. But when you're looking at your results, if you are doing these measurements on a constant basis, and you get those results over time, then you see the trend, and the trend line is probably very accurate.
Yeah, that's the most important and most interesting thing to see, the long-term like changes and the trends. So and then you can make conclusions about how adapted you are, and on the base of your like feelings. And for example, today I haven't really eaten anything. I've been just drinking chaga tea and some coffee. So it's really easy to be in the state of ketosis and have like a constant energy. So one thing I would elevate here, that if you start feeling a little bit of sluggish or like tired, then just taking a little bit of salt will like immediately turn that off.
Yeah. Most of the problem with keto flu and feeling sluggish and on a low carb diet has to do with electrolyte imbalances and not getting enough sodium and potassium. And also, like I feel like it's important to not get stuck with or not get caught up with the numbers. Like everyone says that don't go chasing ketones. You want the results. You don't want the ketones. Unless you're doing some sort of a real scientific study. An average person there, if you're doing keto, then they mostly simply want to either lose some weight, gain the cognitive benefits or the metabolic health benefits. So yeah, as long as you're feeling fine, as long as your biomarkers are also within an optimal range, then you don't have to be paying that attention to whether or not I'm in deep ketosis or if I get kicked out of because of it. If you're accidentally eating a little bit more carbs, or these ketone levels, they fluctuate during the day a lot. If you get stressed out because of something, or anxious, or if you just worked out intensely, then you may experience a completely different result from your ketones. So it's like the long-term matters, like over the course of several weeks and months even.
There's a question on the chat about the role of water, like liquids in all of this. Like, do you have anything to elaborate on this?
Well, basically, like the rationale is that if you are going on a keto diet, then your kidneys are going to retain less water, and you're going to flush out a lot of the water weight that insulin is keeping in check, in stored in your body. So in so doing, you're going to also maybe potentially lose some electrolytes and minerals, and that's why it's important to supplement some more extra salt and the other electrolytes in your diet. But at the same time, it's not a good idea to overhydrate yourself either, because if you're drinking a lot of water, then you're naturally going to be flushing out more electrolytes. So it's a vicious cycle in the sense that you don't want to be drinking water to the point of where you're going to the bathroom every hour, or if your urine is crystal clear, it has to be slightly yellowish, in a sense that it's overhydration is also like very, very common, because it can actually lead to muscle cramps and more fatigue. So what I do is drink when you're thirsty. That's a good indicator, because your body is very, very well adapted to actually manufacturing its own water from the body fat, from burning body fat as well. So
right,
drink when you're thirsty. That's the best advice I can give.
So taking some salt when you drink might be a good idea. I mean, that sounds like completely opposite of everything that we have been taught. You should avoid too much salt, you should avoid butter and all these things. Now you're saying that you should take all of those at once to feel amazing and be healthier and lose some of that fat. Cool. So Kirsten, thank you so much for that question. If there's any more questions, we would love to hear more of those. Viv Nurse is mentioning that she likes to use urine strips. Do you have, by the way, any opinion on kind of comparing urine strips to blood measurements or the acetone level measurements from breath?
I think urine strips aren't the best ones, because you're basically you may be producing ketones. It may show you that you're breaking down some of that liver glycogen, but at the same time, it's not going to tell you that you're burning, or that you have switched over to a fat burning metabolism, in a sense that you're simply excreting them, and it actually may be a bad sign, because your liver, your body is kind of resisting those ketones. So I would suggest simply to try to get the blood ketones, because it may be better. It's a much more it's more indicative of your body using those ketones, actually, rather than simply excreting them.
There is also this term keto flu that is associated with the loss of electrolytes. So can you elaborate a little bit on that one?
Yeah, definitely. Keto flu is the biggest reasons why people fail, and they feel tired and sluggish. And electrolytes are definitely the biggest reasons for that. And usually when the RDA, their daily recommended intake of sodium, is somewhere around 2,000 milligrams, which is, half a teaspoon or 1 teaspoon of salt, then on a keto diet or a low carb diet, you actually need quite a bit more. I usually try to aim for maybe like 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams of sodium, which is like 2 to 3 teaspoons of salt. And that's basically going to replenish your electrolytes. Is going to actually promote blood flow, vasodilation in your muscles as well. And it can be like it can supplement your, exercise performance as well. It can improve your performance. And definitely it makes food tastier as well. So salt is definitely something that can fix the keto flu. And in general, you can also take, these different electrolyte supplements, maybe like potassium, and I don't know, depends on the supplement, but it has to be like very keto friendly, in a sense that it won't have these other artificial ingredients and flavorings that may potentially spike your insulin.
I have 2 perfect solutions if you're like going into ketogenic diet, going into ketosis. What I used when I was like in the first phase, I just ate some cucumber, has a lot of potassium, a lot of like water content and some fiber, and then some good quality salt, and it's like immediately stops everything. The cucumber it's amazing. It's actually also very calming to your nervous system, so you can tinker
and also
with that.
if you take it like pickles, if you eat the pickles, then you're gonna get like a double combo. You're gonna get the tons of sodium and vinegar, and you're gonna get the potassium from cucumbers. So drink
that's
some.
that's even better.
Yeah, one of my own favorites is to snack on some avocados. Also, that's kind of
avocados very high in potassium and also in fat. So avocado, if you think about that as a ketogenic food, it's probably the perfect choice with some mineral salt on it. So it's good to go. And if you're not like totally adjusted into intermittent fasting, you can like eat an avocado if you feel hungry and some salt, and that's like very good bridge into more longer periods of intermittent fasting.
A little applause on that one.
Yeah.
So a question about this is from the chat also. Ilari Hosia is asking second question, like how about sports and low carb and ketogenic diet? How easy is that? I mean, that's $1 million question. Like a lot of people are saying that when it comes to this fat adaptation and ketogenic diet, that it doesn't go very well with endurance training or so on, because your muscles need the glycogen. Is that right?
Well, it depends on what kind of training you're doing. For instance, when we look at like the different, what kind of fuel your body uses at different intensities, then at lower intensities like steady state cardio and running and jogging, or even simply walking, laying around, then you're burning mostly you're burning fat even on a high carb diet. And you only need glycogen at higher intensities like sprinting, lifting weights, and CrossFit and stuff like that. So if you are exercising so intensely that you're burning through all of your glycogen stores, then it's indeed a good idea to maybe add in a few carbs into your diet in some strategic ways. But in general, after you become keto adapted, then you actually raise the ceiling at which you can burn body fat for fuel as well. And a study was done by Jeff Wallach and Stephen Finney, where they show that these ultra endurance athletes, after about 6 months or so of keto adaptation, they were able to burn fat as a primary fuel source, even at the intensities of 80% and above. So, they improved their body's ability to burn fat at higher intensities. So it comes to show that, you do indeed need glycogen and you do need glucose, but if you become keto adapted, then you become more glucose sparing, and you're gonna burn less glycogen during exercise in total. But in general, like the best sports for keto are actually like these endurance sports, or if you're doing like marathon running, or if you're doing regular aerobic cardio, then that's the best fuel for that is probably like a really good keto diet, because you want to be in this fat burning state where you have constant and stable levels of energy. And even like stuff like powerlifting and weightlifting and calisthenics, I myself am doing mostly like strength training, resistance training, and I'm still eating keto, and I don't feel the need to I don't see like a lack of performance if I don't eat carbohydrates. Your body can actually produce glucose from fatty acids as well, and it can be used to replenish muscle glycogen with fatty acid molecules. And it also has to be like in order for your body to actually deplete your muscle glycogen, it has to be very intense. You have to be in the gym for hours and really grinding out those reps. That's your body is very capable of converting all of those different fuel sources back into energy.
Right. So that's quite unlikely for many athletes out there who are more recreational than kind of putting all in. So what you're saying basically is that if you do ketosis right, that you're actually getting yourself keto adapted, it will work for you. And if you only try it out like, 1 or 2 days a week, you decide to go completely fat-based and then try exercise, it's not going to show us a drastic result. So you really have to have the patience to kind of get fat adapted. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I could probably implement or reflect on this. So I've been experimenting this, of course, on myself, and I have this certain benchmark like trainings and like CrossFit type of training. So actually my performance has gotten better. That might be due to some fat loss and being more metabolically effective. But as Siim said, the best way to use ketosis is for, of course, endurance, because you're burning mostly fat. But I can show you a few studies that have been done on CrossFitters actually. So they have like measured.
Yeah. Wait a second. I'm gonna throw in this thing here. Oh, not that one. Let's see. Ooh, sorry. Here we go. Okay, Olli, go ahead. Research of the week.
Research of the week. Let's see. Desktop.
Powered by Ketones.
Yes. So this is actually in Finnish, but let's see. There's this question if you can do exercise in ketosis. So here are like two studies. The first one is released or published on 2017, a low carbohydrate ketogenic diet combined with 6 weeks of CrossFit training improves body composition and performance. So as you can see from this study, this has they had 27 non-elite CrossFit subjects. They were randomized into like control group or low carb ketogenic diet group. And the conclusions were that our data show that LCKD combined with 6 weeks of CrossFit training can lead to significant decrease in body fat percentage, fat mass, weight, and body mass index while maintaining lean body mass and improving performance. So this was like the first, or was it the second one? This was released in it was the same year as the second study on the right.
What do they mean by like improved performance?
Yeah, so there's let's see from here. The performance was in the metcons and also in the strength type of lifts. So there was no significant difference, a slightly better performance in the ketogenic diet group. And this other study showed also that it was a 12-week ketogenic diet while cross-training. There was improves in body composition without negatively impacting muscle mass and or aerobic, anaerobic, or strength performance. So this study found out that there were no performance benefits, but there were no like disadvantages. But your body composition got like really significantly better. So
it was done like in non-elite athletes as well, like there were recreational.
Recreational athletes, non-elites. So this was like basically your basic CrossFitter. So and these kind of studies are coming like mushrooms in the rain. So
I think like when it comes to CrossFit, then if you are doing it on a keto diet, then you're simply burning through. Though you're not burning that much glycogen on CrossFit either, because your body can, like I mentioned, your fatty acid molecules can be converted back into glucose, and those can be replenished with muscle glycogen. But with CrossFit, it may be simply that if you are doing it very intensely or if you're doing it very frequently, then it may lead to simply a situation where you're simply overtaxing your body. And I would imagine if you are like a non-elite athlete, then your body, you're not exercising that frequently, or you're not doing it that often, where you would actually need to replenish your muscle glycogen that fast. Because you don't even need to be eating anything at all for your muscle glycogen to refill itself. You can muscle glycogen tends to refill itself maybe within 24 to 36 hours, and it's back full again, simply because of your body fat being converted into glycogen.
Yeah, you're like right on point on this. If you're like elite athlete, then I wouldn't go just full ketogenic, I would go with a targeted ketogenic and implementing the carbohydrates around the workout. But quite rare of us are like elite athletes who train 2 to 3 times per day. But many CrossFitters actually are who are like training for competitions. So for those, I wouldn't go like just pure ketogenic, but targeted ketogenic diet and play with that.
Yeah, you need to consume some carbohydrates to replenish your glycogen only if you exercise maybe like twice a day or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And only if the workouts have been like really exhaustive and really like glycogen storage draining.
Yeah, and I've been doing like powerlifting and things like that, strength training on a keto diet. I've done like in last year I did like the squat every day challenge for an entire month. I did heavy squats for an entire month, and I didn't need to consume some extra carbohydrates to replenish my glycogen. And because if you're doing like powerlifting or strength training, then you're only burning glycogen only like for just a few repetitions. They're not that taxing to your glycogen stores. So most of the time you're simply resting.
Yeah, and if you think about the energy systems that your body is using while powerlifting or even Olympic lifting, it's mainly ATP and some phosphagen system, and rarely it goes into glycogen. So only with the higher reps.
Yeah, and at the same, you mentioned that this study was done on CrossFit, but I also recall another study done on elite level gymnasts. And they also went on a low carb diet for a few weeks, and they actually increased their lean body mass, burned some body fat, and they actually gained strength as well. So it comes to show that even in these elite sports, where gymnastics is one of the toughest sports in the world, and they train hours every day, so they're still able to perform on a low carb keto diet.
Yeah, and actually, as you said, there has been like many athletes going into that, and they say that they perform even better. So it's probably has to do with the easier body composition management, and a lot easier to lose weight if you're in a weight class sport.
There's a comment from Stefan Oversberg that he ran his half marathon faster than ever after 3 months on a ketogenic diet. So there you have it. Anyone out there who is kind of skeptical about it. So definitely you can run on fats. And I know people who are into mountain climbing. There's this one mountain climber from Finland, and he said that the most efficient fuel to carry with you is actually fat and
your body fat.
Yeah, your own body fat, but also you can pack your bag full of just the highest fat based foods, and that will give you much more energy for such an endurance feat like climbing a mountain. And you definitely don't want to carry like huge amounts of food with you. So
yeah, one of these Finnish guys, Sami Inkinen, I think his name was. He actually rode across the Pacific Ocean from California to Hawaii on a fat burning metabolism. So definitely, it's much more efficient to do these long endurance races in a state of ketosis.
Absolutely, and one super interesting thing about Sami Inkinen specifically is that they founded this company called Virta in US, and Virta has been reversing type 2 diabetes with ketogenic diet specifically, and that's quite drastic. And when it comes to their protocol, it's like they're combining dietary interventions with some blood work, and so they're making sure that people are staying in ketosis and that they're not getting into any issues on that level. And they're also coaching them and having frequent discussions and checkups, and seems like that's the recipe for someone who is almost insulin resistant to reverse perhaps some of the issues related to it. And actually, I can show some of the results. I have them right here from the Virta program. So let's take a look at this one. Here we go. Here we go. So here is some of the results from their clinical study on their focus group. I don't remember how many patients were enrolled in this one, maybe 100 or so. And this is 1 year result. So they were able to reduce a combined marker for insulin resistance called HOMA-IR by 55%. And the body weight went down by 12%. And also the inflammatory biomarkers, high sensitive C-reactive protein went down. And is there a homocysteine here? No. There is also, if you look at the long-term fasting blood glucose, HbA1c, that's also getting reduced by 1.3%. So, and for anyone who is kind of pre-diabetic or diabetic, is the fact that they were able to reduce the amount of diabetes medication. I think that's huge, and I'm not surprised why they got like $45 million to continue this work.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Everyone who has like these blood sugar problems or diabetes or insulin resistance, then I think they should be put on a low-carb keto diet, and they should actually start doing some intermittent fasting as well, because those are one of the easiest ways of lowering blood sugar and reversing insulin resistance. So definitely something, like Dr. Jason Fung has written many books about it, and he basically lays it out very simplistically that, the key is insulin, and if you are eating high amounts of carbohydrates all day, every day, then you're basically feeding the fire with more gasoline in a sense.
Right. So I think we're getting close to the end of this. There's going to be more about this topic at the Biohacker Summit that is coming along 18th of May in Stockholm, and there's a live stream available if people want to follow on. So Siim, if people want to learn more about ketogenic diet, where can they find more information about this?
Well, basically, I have many videos about it on YouTube under the channel Siim Land. My website is also siimland.com, where I write articles about, nutrition, ketosis, fasting, biohacking, and becoming superhuman in general. But I also have a few books on Amazon under the titles of, keto bodybuilding, keto fasting, and things like that. So you can check it out. Right.
And Olli, like you also wrote something about this in the Biohacker's Handbook on Work. The chapter actually came out today, so if anyone's interested, take a look at it.
Yeah, there's like basic explanation what exactly is ketosis, what's happening in the metabolic, what's happening inside the mitochondria, and how you can implement intermittent fasting and how it like affects your circadian rhythms, and like basic stuff that you need to know to understand why would you do this, why would you want to go into ketosis, why would you implement intermittent fasting into your workday. So that's also in the work chapter.
Amazing. So thank you very much, Olli, and thank you very much, Siim, for taking part into this.
Thanks.
Yeah. And what was it? Stay empowered. Stay on butter.
Stay ketotic. Stay empowered.
Amazing. Thank you, Siim.
Thank
you, Siim. Hi. Cool, guys. Thank you very much. I'm gonna play the editing trailer here, and we're good to go. Do whatever we need for the rest of the day. Let's kick on it. So Siim Land was our guest today. If you want to learn more about Siim, go to his YouTube channel, and he's pretty amazing. For his age, he's achieved a lot in terms of understanding what's going on in the human body, and the YouTube channel is amazing, and he has excellent stage presence also. Check out biohackersummit.com. We have over there information about our upcoming event. The program looks absolutely amazing. I can show it very quickly. So what do we have here? We have peak performance is one of the tracks that we're focusing on. That's where Siim Land is going to be talking about becoming anti-fragile with ketogenic diet. There's also Martina Johansson, another specialist on the ketogenic diet, talking about the biochemistry of optimizing productivity. We have Peter Yosten talking about the coming era of superhumans. In the brain optimization section, we have Dr. Andrew Hill coming from the US. He's one of the biggest experts on neurofeedback and QEEG. I'm going to get my brain mapped. He's running a workshop there. If you want to really map your brain and see what's wrong and fix it, he's the man. And he's very rarely in Europe. So that's a rare opportunity. That's going to be on Monday, 21st of May. More information on the Biohacker Summit website. And then we have, looking at the optimal recovery, we have Hannu Kinnunen from Oura. The Oura is over there showing their latest ring. He's talking about chronotypes and optimal bedtime. We're going to be having a discussion, Biohacker's live show with him on Monday. And Olli personal is going to be diving deep into nutrients for stress management. We just wrote a book on biohacking stress in Finnish language. That's coming out next year in English, but we're going to be sharing some of the findings in that session. And Greg Potter, who was our guest previously, is hacking your way to better sleep and life and giving you all the tips that you want to see there. In the health optimization section, we have a bunch of 10-minute presentations from really interesting companies showing the latest products and technologies. And we will finish with exponential biohacking, diving deep into the exponential nature of what implications these will have on humanity, but also in terms of how this industry is being built. I mean, biohacking is growing in force. Absolutely, it's getting big, it's getting huge, and we see that every year there is more and more cool companies, cool people working in this field, getting deep into the knowledge, sharing what they know. And we have also some announcements coming up also about upcoming Biohacker Summit events. If you can make this one, you can watch the live stream. But later in October, we are having an event in Toronto. So there's going to be more information on that one specifically. But with that, follow us on Facebook and YouTube and sign up to the newsletter at Biohacker's Handbook channel. And I wish you a pretty amazing rest of the week. It's Mother's Day coming along this Sunday in Finland, at least. So I wish you all good.